to the NE mission space that we have here. I'm going to turn the time over to Dan Nichols, who's been gracious enough to join us and answer questions in just a moment to discuss the specifics of this topic area. And Dan will provide you a little bit of information about what is ongoing in program area spaces that are related to topic area 9, give you some background there. The intention here is that we're giving all of you the flexibility, but also the responsibility to define the gaps that that are currently there, new technologies that could be impactful to the area, and bring your best ideas to the table. What we want to help all of you with is helping to understand where DOE is already working in these spaces, and also try to provide you with any resources you might have if you do want to work more closely with the ongoing DOE programs. And Dan can talk about a little bit of those things as those types of questions come up. And so the point I want to emphasize is whether you try to align or work with current program activities, or you have a different idea they may be outside of the box, all of those things are welcome in this topic area. It's just a question of how, as you direct your questions, really how you want to approach the space that we're in. And Dan is here, and the NEUP Integration Office is here to help facilitate those conversations and get you the resources you need so that you can make the connections you need to make a strong proposal. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Dan Nichols, and then after he's finished, we'll open up for a question and answer session. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Like Drew said, my name is Daniel Nichols. I'm the Federal Program Manager for the Advanced Sensors and Instrumentation Program, ASI for short. My program focuses on developing sensors that are cross-cutting, that support the existing reactor fleet, future reactor or advanced reactor concepts that are coming through design, demonstration, and deployment, as well as supporting fuel cycle and materials testing needs. But that is, of course, not the only program in the Office of Nuclear Energy that does sensor-related work. So I wanted to highlight a couple other programs and throw up on the screen some QR codes for their websites that you can access to get a little bit more detailed information on what's going on in those programs. But some of the programs I wanted to highlight was, of course, the ASI programs up at the top, the Advanced Materials and Manufacturing Technologies Program, AMMT. They focus on developing new materials or new methods of producing those materials to support reactor, the existing reactor fleet or advanced reactors. The LWRS program, which stands for the Light Water Reactor Sustainability Program, they focus on supporting the existing reactor fleet, supporting materials research to extend the licensing of those fleet or of those reactors, as well as upgrading some of the systems for those plants to keep them cost competitive. And then there's, of course, the microreactor program that focuses on the next generation of microreactors, or the first generation of microreactors, the next generation of nuclear reactors in general. And their involvement in sensor domain is really how do we miniaturize sensors to support the deployment of microreactors, and what sort of signals and measurement fidelity do we need to support the deployment of microreactors in the sense of potentially accomplishing semi-autonomous or fully autonomous operations, or getting more information from the reactor as it operates over the course of its lifetime. And then finally, I wanted to point just generally to the GAIN website. That is the Gateway for Accelerated Innovation in Nuclear. On the GAIN website, there's plenty of other resources connecting to other programs, such as the Fast Reactor Program, Molten Salt Reactor Program, and the High Temperature Gas Cooled Reactor programs. So that's also an excellent resource to look at what are those programs accomplishing, what sort of sensor research is ongoing in those areas. And then just to get to punctuate this discussion, just mentioning some background for myself. I come from the sensors background, finished my PhD focusing on radiation detectors for nuclear reactors, and have some reactor operating experience getting my reactor operator and senior reactor operator license at a university reactor. So this is a domain that I'm well acquainted with. Granted, I'm fairly new to the DOE, been here for just over 2 years, but I am looking forward to discussing with you opportunities to support this topic area. And one last note I wanted to make was that part of this topic area includes discussion of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and digital twin applications. This is something that we here at the DOE Office of Nuclear Energy see as a very important aspects of helping with the future advanced nuclear reactor deployments. And this is something that's like a burgeoning technology or technology areas that we would love to hear your ideas of how to leverage these technologies to support future development. So with that, I guess that was the end of my talking points. Drew, do you have any other remarks, or do we want to head into the Q&A session?
I think we can head right into the Q&A session, and I'll provide some remarks at the end that
Awesome.
kind of cover some more housekeeping type items. So I do want to mention as we start, because this question will likely come up, if we will be posting these slides so you can get those QR codes and those websites. The answer is yes. We'll get these from Dan, and then we'll post these up to nup.gov later in the week. So with that, I'll turn the time back over to Felicia.
Okay, thank you. So we will open it up for questions now. You are welcome to take yourself off of mute, introduce yourself, and ask your question. You can also type your questions into the chat. Okay. Looks like Charles Hurst has his hand up. Go ahead, Charles.
Good morning. So my name is Charles Hurst. I'm a postdoc at University of Michigan, and I was just wondering if there's any interest in increased sensitivity and precision of passive thermometry in test reactor in-core capsules, basically, and the potential also for retrospective dosimetry to measure the flux and flux gradients within those capsules.
Understood. So I guess part of this conversation is that not speaking specifically to certain projects and giving a thumbs up or thumbs down, but more talking to the category in general. That is research that the Department of Energy, Office of Nuclear Energy, has invested in the past, and we definitely see the potential of that technology to continue to be developed to support our efforts. So you mentioning both, you said temperature monitoring, but then dosimetry, so neutron flux dosimetry for reactors. That is something that we have supported in the past, and that is something that would definitely fall under this category of measuring, monitoring, controlling reactors. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I would encourage you to, if you have an opportunity, there should be some documents on the asi.inl.gov website that talks about some of that past work for passive monitoring that may be beneficial for you and others who are crafting their scopes accordingly. So
that's it. Thank you.
It looks like we have another hand up. Asan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Dan, for a quick and brief introduction of the program. I have a quick, maybe a generic question of if robotic inspection in general is part of the scope of this particular area of research, or robotic inspection, when I talk, is like underwater can be part of that, out of water, because you have harsh environment. Is it something that is categorized here, or it can be categorized in maybe two programs at the same time?
So I guess, can you elaborate a little bit further on the robotic connection? Would there be a device that's used to like insert sensors or to reduce the time near adverse environments. Is that the intent?
So there are several anomalies that can happen in the pipelines, in reactors. There are several problems that in weld can happen, like let's say embrittlement can happen. Robotic inspection, when I say so, those robotic platforms can go inside or outside and perform inspection as needed. So it is kind of measurement, but it is not. It's a measurement and monitoring, but it's more of the in line with the maintenance of the entire power system. Oh, by the way, it is Ehsan Niri from Arizona State University. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself.
Oh, thank you. So kind of listening to that does seem very similar to some work that we've done in the past, but it seems to be, novel or different than past funded work. I believe that would support this specific topic area, being that it's very similar to work that we've funded in the past. The important thing for this topic area is making a connection to how to support the nuclear energy industry, commercial power production, excuse me. So I believe, if you punctuate those remarks, I guess as a general comment to all individuals on the call, is punctuating how your technology is connected to nuclear commercial power production, and then how it's how it supports that, and then how it leverages measuring, monitoring, controls systems is kind of what we're looking for. But based on your general description, it sounds like that it does fall in this category. It may support other categories, so I also encourage you to review the other topic areas to make sure that that's the right selection. But of course, when you submit your letter of intent or your other documents, we'll look through them here at the Department of Energy and try to see, is this the best fit, or make sure that relevant program managers have access and have eyes on to review that.
Thanks, Dan.
Welcome. Before we get too far with the hand raising, I did see a question in the chat, so I want to address that. Krishna asked, does robust sensors include semiconductor radiation detectors? Is silicon carbide a material of interest to any mission? So speaking to both of those, yes, in the past, the Department of Energy, Office of Nuclear Energy has funded semiconductor radiation detector development. Now, I want to kind of caveat that we are, again, looking for supporting the NE mission, focusing on the existing reactor fleet, future reactor development. And so I encourage you to make sure that it ties to the NE mission. There have been proposals in the past that have been very focused on non-proliferation purposes. That's very much in the NNSA's wheelhouse, even though NNSA is part of DOE. We kind of have a distinction between our missions. Now, of course, if that technology is cross-cutting, where it does support nuclear commercial power production, then it sounds like it would fit in this category. But I would make sure that you review some of the past work that's been done. Of course, again, you can find some of that material would be located on the asi.inl.gov website. There should be some newsletters, annual review, or annual program review webinar presentations that have touched on semiconductor radiation detectors. And then just speaking to silicon carbide in general, so silicon carbide is a semiconductor. Yes, there has been work that's been funded in the past for that purpose, but then also semiconductors as a passive monitor. There's some current ongoing work that will be detailed in those newsletters that I would encourage you to review. Semiconductors, or silicon carbide in particular can be used in many different ways. There's also it used as a structural material. So just to answer your second question, I want to make sure that there is a number of avenues by which silicon carbide has been researched. So hopefully that answered your question. And I see that there was a follow-up, so I'll tag that right now, or answer that right now as well. Are diamond detectors of interest for radiation detection? The answer would be yes as well. Semiconductors in general, across the board, would be of benefit. Again, just tying it to the NE mission is the most important aspect when responding to these topic areas. So hopefully that answered your question, Krishna. Then there's another hand up. Felicia, I can't see whose hand it is.
Yeah, It looks like it's Joseph.
Hi, I think that's me.
Yes.
Joseph Corcoran from the University of Cincinnati. I think from listening to your previous answers, I know the answer to this already. Is structural health monitoring, structural integrity within the scope? And I guess yes, provided it's tied in with the nuclear energy mission.
Yep. Yeah. Correct.
And then to follow up on that, is there a opportunity before the pre-proposals go in to get any more detailed feedback from the program managers or anyone like that?
So I'm going to rope Drew into this question.
Yeah, Dan, I'll take this one. So the intention of the pre-application phase is to get that feedback. So the answer is no on getting feedback before the pre-application stage, but for those that are new to the process, the invitation from a pre-application stage standpoint gives an indication of, hey, from a DOE mission perspective and from a technical merit perspective, this was one of the most excellent proposals in the group, and is invited to move forward. That doesn't mean that you cannot submit a not invited application. So you can rework that not invited application into a full application based on the feedback that you receive from reviewers, and then resubmit it as a not invited full application. It doesn't, all it has to, the barrier that it has to pass is the same as the pre-application. It just has to meet the NE mission from a relevancy standpoint, and then it goes forward into the consideration pool for a potential award in the full application stage. So that pre-application stage is intended to provide that formal feedback.
All right, thank you.
Excellent.
All right, hopefully that answered your question.
It doesn't look like there's any more questions right now, but if anybody has a question, go ahead, just unmute yourself and ask your question. Oh, we just got one in the chat. Do safety-related trip sensors fall within CINR, topic area 9?
I guess, can you elaborate on trip sensors specifically, like interlocks or like scram sensor? Like, yeah, can you elaborate on trip sensors?
Absolutely. Can you hear me, Dan?
I can.
All right, so safety-related trip sensors being specifically sensors, I guess, that would trigger a trip of a reactor or scram of a reactor, depending upon your terminology, but sensors that don't improve the performance parameters, they don't characterize the reactors, they're just a novel way to trigger another trip.
Yes, I believe that would, because that supports the NE mission through either upgrading or updating the existing reactor fleet, or supporting the advanced reactor development. So based on that clarification, I believe it would fall in this category, because it's essentially the three words on the screen right now: measuring, monitoring, and controls. That would probably fall under monitoring controls areas. So yes, I believe it would.
All right, thank you, sir.
And there was another hand raised.
Yeah, it looks like it's Vince.
Hello. So it's Vince Wong from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Yeah, so well, thank you for the information. And my question is, does reactor kinetic related research like transient analysis like consider one of the interests of this topic, like both experimental and also computational? Thank you.
So for clarification on this, Vince, are you talking about studying the phenomenon of the reactor, or are you talking about developing a sensor or method to measure that phenomenon? What would be the focus of what you just described?
So actually, it's related to like delay neutron, like how does it impact the reactor control? That's what I'm inferring.
Okay, so this that that concept may actually speak to multiple topic areas. I would encourage you to look at the modeling and simulation topic area. I believe it is topic area 8. So if part of that work would be simulating what's occurring in the reactor using some sort of model of the reactor system, and then you did validation using sensors, and that you were developing sensors for the purposes or increasing the accuracy of those sensors using that simulation and experimentation, then it would kind of potentially speak to 2 topic areas. So I'll leave that to your discretion of which one you believe it fits best under, and we may make recommendations in the future. But for topic area 9, what we're really looking for is developing sensors is one, developing control systems would be another, using artificial intelligence, machine learning on data sets to get a better understanding would be another, and then developing digital twins and of a system or of a reactor or a component of a reactor would fall under these categories. So based on that description, based on the description I just gave, does that kind of speak to what you were considering? Had you had a chance to look at topic area 8 potentially to see if your idea would fall under modeling and simulation?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I attended the modeling simulation topic area like the webinar yesterday.
Okay.
But my work will probably involve some experiment. But basically, the modeling and simulation, what the information I get is if you involve some nuclear data experiment, then probably it's a no-go for that topic area. So that's why I go here today to see if that fit. But okay, so I think I got the good like a picture like how you should look like. Well, thank you very much though.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and Dan, I may just butt in here for a second. I know Vince was on the call yesterday when I mentioned this, but I'll mention it here to the group that's here. When an application comes in to say topic area 9 that has heavy modeling or something like that, just so everyone's aware, internally at DOE, those conversations do take place, and we make sure that we get the right review group to kind of represent each application correctly. So we may bring in some of the modeling folks if it's very modeling heavy with some experimental work, or there may be a recommendation that comes back to you that says, hey, this would fit better in the modeling area. It would probably be evaluated more advantageously over there. And so we'll just so everyone knows, the topic areas are important from an organizational standpoint, but there is a little bit of flexibility both from a review group standpoint and from if we fundamentally feel like it belongs somewhere else, we'll engage in that conversation with you and get your ultimately it's your application. You're going to make a determination about where it should go, but program managers may suggest to move that application during this pre-application phase to better represent the work or how it's organized amongst all the other CI&R topics.
So Drew, just to follow up, so does that mean in the pre-application phase, irrespective which topic area you submitted, it can be moved to other topic area? Sorry.
And so yeah, to be clear, once it's submitted to a topic area, it will stay there unless DOE program management really feels like there's a strong beneficial reason for you to move it to a different topic area. And we would engage in those conversations with the lead PI if we felt that was the case. So,
okay, thank you.
Yep. Perfect. I'll turn it back over to you, Felicia, for the next individual.
Okay, great. It looks like Yan Qing is the next one with their hand up.
Hi, this is Yan Qing from Utah State University. I will not be the leading PI, but I just have a quick question. So for this topic, we have the measuring, monitoring, and control. So I am wondering, do we have to integrate all those pieces together in one proposal? Like say we want to design a new sensor. So within the budget, we might only focus on designing new materials and also test the materials behavior under the irradiative environment. In that case, we might not put that much emphasis on the control system. Will that be okay?
Yeah, so in the past, and I believe that's still the case, developing just the sensor would also fall under this topic area. Of course, you know, in the grand scope of things, we're looking for technology that will support the industry. Having just a sensor developed by itself may not be as advantageous to roll out to the existing reactor fleet or advanced reactor concepts. But this can be used, the solicitation can be used as setting up the initial understanding of a new sensor type to then build into the future, you know, integrating it into a control system. So I believe that would fall under this category of just focusing on the sensor. Of course, you know, again, speaking to the larger NE mission, we're looking for things that will eventually support the existing reactor fleet, future reactor development. So just kind of factor that into your proposal.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Nicole. Yeah, I understand it now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It looks like the next hand that we have up is Clifford.
Hi, thank you. This is Cliff Lissenden. I'm at Penn State. And what I'm going to ask is to get a bit more of your perspective on the discussion on Vince's question, I guess. This topic area for measuring, monitoring, controls is, of course, going to overlap with the other topic areas some. So you've talked about some ways to mitigate those issues, but I wanted to explore another way to get your perspective on this. And so on the one hand, I could write a pre-application that for this topic area that also identifies the other topic areas where it has at least a secondary fit. Mm. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, I could visualize submitting a pre-application to topic area 9, and then tweaking that pre-application a little bit and sending it to, say, the used fuel topic area, and with the proviso, and I don't know how you would make this proviso, is that these pre-applications are quite similar. There are some differences because they're being submitted to these different topic areas, but we just really want to see which one brings more excitement, and then that would be the one that hopefully would move forward. Okay. What's your sense? And yeah, so what's your sense on that?
So Drew, do you mind if I kind of get some clarification on the technical, and then we can maybe move into procedural? So just to confirm, so you mentioned, and I'm assuming it wasn't an arbitrary example, you mentioned the measuring, monitoring, controls topic area, and then the used fuels area. Is my understanding correct that the proposal that you may be submitting relates to those two topics specifically? Because the reason why I ask is if the focus of your proposal is on developing a sensor that is used for used fuel monitoring reasons, it would potentially be primarily focused or relating to this category or this topic area rather than that one. So topic area 9 should cover across the board sense or measuring, monitoring, controls technologies that support the various other programs. So that may add a little bit of clarity to kind of which direction you want to go, but I'll hand it over to Drew to talk a little bit about policy or process and procedure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me answer your question. So that
Sure.
those are two of the topic areas that I think the pre-application ideas would reach, but I think it would also reach to reactor materials. So
Okay.
the fact that it's pretty broad, brings me to this topic area.
Yeah, and Cliff, the way let me talk through a couple of the pieces of the CINR FOA and some of the rules that are related to it, and then talk a little bit about how the pre-application review process is conducted, because I think that might be helpful in answering the question. The first thing is that I would discourage submitting the same or very similar applications to two different topic areas. Submitting the same application to two different topic areas isn't allowed in the CINR funding opportunity. And if there are similarities where there's no clear differences between the applications, then there's likelihood either one or both could be dismissed. So I'll caution just that the intention is if it's fundamentally different, if the application is fundamentally different, meaning you're developing a different sensor technology, you're using different materials, you're applying something in a very different way, those would be considered two different applications, right? But if they're very similar in approach, very similar in development, then they may be seen as the same. The reason why we don't allow two is because if they were to both go forward, for example, we're not going to fund the same work twice in the federal government system, regardless of whether it's NSF or DOE or otherwise. And that's why you all submit a current pending support document as well. So so that aspect is important. That one idea, one proposal sits alone in the funding opportunity. The second thing I'll mention, and Dan alluded to this, is when you're trying to pick a topic area, I would encourage you, if it's cross-cutting in nature, which a lot of these topics have the same type of argument, right? That it can be cross-cutting against across several topic areas. What I would encourage you to do is think, what is the bulk of the research activity, right? If it's the development of a sensor, if it's proving that the monitoring technique is effective or something like that, that would likely be here, right? Even if there is some material work in there, even if there is some modeling work. What we do from a review process standpoint, to address your last question, Cliff, about where there's potential excitement, is internally here during the pre-application process, if there is something that's very cross-cutting, where, for example, somebody like Dan or somebody in the monitoring and control space or the sensor space feels like, hey, it would be beneficial to have somebody from the used fuel area come in and take a look at the application or the applied side of how the sensor may work in their space, then we have those conversations here internally and make sure that as we develop our review groups, we're inclusive of different types of reviewers for different types of applications. And so from an excitement standpoint of trying to understand, hey, what's the direct feedback that I could get from the used fuel side and the monitoring control side, as we develop our review groups, we try to incorporate all of those things so that you get so that you get the expertise and the cross-cutting expertise in some cases there to review the applications. So I hope that answers the question, Cliff. Maybe I'll open it back up to you if you have a follow-up after that kind of long-winded explanation.
No, thanks, Drew. That's crystal clear.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted to expand on something that Drew kind of touched on it. Is that for sensors, instrumentation controls, digital twins, artificial intelligence, it's very cross-cutting. It supports many different programs. I guess a good way to summarize it is we don't invest in sensor development just for the sake of developing the sensor. We invest in sensor development, controls development for the sake of supporting a program downstream or an outcome downstream. And so that's really a big connection point that must be drawn by an applicant is, why are you developing the sensor? What purpose is it potentially intended to support it going into the future. You know, coming up with a new novel sensor type is great, but if there's no application intended for it, then it kind of it's competing. It will be competing with other applicants who say, well, I'm developing this sensor type for this reason. You know, it's we're starting at square one, but we're intending that it should be going to support that eventual goal. So that's a very important aspect. And another delineation that I'll make, that because it's pretty common that people ask, well, you know, modeling and simulation and experimentation, they're very close, they're very intercoupled. I guess the line that may be beneficial to draw is if an applicant was proposing a project where, let's say, they were developing code to model a reactor, and to validate that code, they needed to deploy sensors to gather the data to then validate the model. Well, in that regard, that would be focusing on developing the model and using sensors to support that activity. And in that case, in my mind, in my opinion, that would be more focused in the modeling and simulation category, but that would be something that would probably come across my desk for review and for input when that application gets submitted. But in that case, the primary beneficiary of that activity would be modeling simulation, and sensors would just be supporting that activity. There's no, in that hypothetical, would be no development of the sensor. There'd just be application of the sensor to support the development of the model. But if you were, if you were doing a proposal, I think one of the questions earlier kind of touched on this. If you were trying to analyze a phenomena in the reactor, and you needed to come from multiple angles, from the simulation side, but also developing sensors to support that specific activity, and maybe that's novel sensors that included, well, then that's kind of, it's straddling the line. It's kind of speaking to both topic areas, and that's where it kind of becomes, what does the applicant consider the primary beneficiary of that proposal? Are they focusing on the sensor development? Are they focusing on building a better model, or getting higher accuracy from a model, or higher accuracy from a sensor? And that's something to consider when you're crafting and submitting your proposals. But anyways, I just wanted to add that clarification. Hopefully that answers some of the questions that may be coming up in the future. But anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. I see Jason has their hand up. Jason.
Yes, hey, this is Jason Ho from NC State University. I apologize if this question has been raised and answered earlier. I was teaching and I couldn't attend from the beginning. So my question is about the control part of this topic area. Judging from the language in the FOA, I see it as heavily leaning towards the sensor development. But I was planning to submit a proposal on the control system for advanced reactors, let's say to support a flexible and long-term operation for advanced reactors. It doesn't really involve any sensor development. It could be something related to sensor placement, but not development. So I wonder if this is relevant at all to this topic, right? Because I couldn't find any another topic area that could fit my proposal really well.
Okay. Yeah. So this is something we've invested in the past, and this is something that we're continuing to have interest and investment in the future. Is this category does speak to applicants who are interested in control methods. So controls naturally requires an input to process and to make a decision. Now, for this category, if you were taking off-the-shelf sensors, instruments, whatever you're using for your system, and then you were to apply a new method of using those inputs to determine outputs or outcomes or methods of control, that would speak to this category, that would be applicable. So one clarification for this topic area is you don't have to be investing in developing a sensor for it to be relevant to this topic area. Developing a control method would be equally as beneficial to this, or equally as applicable to this category. It's just important, again, to tie it to the NE mission, to make sure, like, hey, we're not developing new sensors. We're taking these sensors that, the nuclear community uses already, but we're analyzing those inputs in this new novel fashion, or we're increasing the accuracy of methods that already exist, and here's the outcome. That would work.
Oh,
Does
great.
that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks so much.
Awesome. We don't see any other hands for now.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions right now, so
okay,
we'll just wait for a minute.
I'm surprised there's no artificial intelligence questions or digital twin questions. That was kind of the thing last year. A lot of people were interested in asking about that. Not that I'm requiring anyone to speak up about those topics, so don't feel like you have to ask questions, but.
So Felicia, as we're waiting for any more questions before we do kind of a final call, maybe I'll make a few comments about after this session is concluded, some due dates to be aware of, and then also if you need to reach back out, how you can do that. For this topic area, the due date for pre-applications is July 26th, so still a few weeks out. This is not the only opportunity to get clarifications. This is an open opportunity to kind of have a back and forth discussion. But if you do have additional questions that come up after this session concludes, please do email neup@inl.gov. That's the contact information that's in the funding opportunity. We will, as an office, will coordinate those responses, whether that's a response to a technical question that Dan or others can help answer, or if it's a more administrative or process question related to the CINR funding opportunity. We can take all of those questions there. So feel free to reach out there anytime before the, and I'm going to put the, oops, see, I even typed it in wrong, but the email address here. And if you need any clarifications, you can reach out. And I actually typed it in correctly this time. So with that, Felicia, should we make a final call for questions and then we can wrap up?
Sure. Yep, that sounds good. So if anybody has any final questions, please just take yourself off mute and ask your question, or you can post it in the chat.
I guess while we're waiting for final questions or the final call for questions, just mentioning that, you know, in years past, calls or topic areas very similar to this category focused on, you know, specific applications. You know, in the past we focused on neutron flux monitoring or structural health monitoring or fiber optics based sensors or wireless communication. That is not the case this year. This is a very open category for you know, monitoring any aspects of a nuclear reactor that would benefit in the deployment or the efficiency or the safety of reactors, both the existing reactor fleet and the future fleet. We're developing new platforms for creating higher fidelity understanding of reactors, you know, digital twin applications. That's something that we're very interested in. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. We see those as we want to understand better or get good ideas from the nuclear community on how to apply those technologies or those tools to support the nuclear industry. So there's no emphasis with what I just said. We're not saying, oh, we're going to weight digital twin applications more than any other application. That's not the case. But of course, we would like, since these are you know, kind of coming onto the scene and becoming more relevant, and people are developing new and better ways of utilizing these tools, we just want to encourage you to kind of think about those aspects. Drew mentioned earlier, you know, thinking outside the box, new things that we hadn't considered before, new solutions. That's what we're really looking for from the community. Is just, you know, developing better ways of doing things, whether that's a new way or refining an old way of doing it. So, right. I don't see any questions while I rambled, so I guess no one else has any questions.
Well, I think we can wrap it up here. And Dan, thank you so much for your time, for taking the opportunity here to discuss the topic with everyone. We'll look forward to all of your applications. Happy proposing, and we'll loop back with anybody that has additional questions through the NEUP inbox. So take care, everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of your day.
Yeah, you too, Dan.